Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the seventh week. Yeah, that this is the first session of the seventh week of the Cairo Bootcamp 4. It's been an amazing journey thus far, right? So in today's class, this week is for front end, right? Front end and the extra session that we're going to be having. So in today's class, Manouh is going to be taking us through how to connect our front end with the smart contract, right? Yeah, so we're also going to be having an extra session tomorrow, right? Which is a session that is open to all tutors. All tutors are going to be available if you have blockers from the first week, the first session. Come with your questions, any questions at all. So we're going to be having that extra session tomorrow. If maybe there's something that is not clear to you enough, and then if maybe you have an idea on the project you want to build, because after this week, we're going to be going into the project phase, which is going to run for 2 weeks. So ensure that you are available so you can ask your question. So right now we're going to be starting. I'm going to be handing over to Manouh so he can take over.
Yeah, GM everyone. Trust you can all hear me. So I just want to see your emojis if you can, so that I can proceed. All right. So sorry for all the problems I had trying to set up, but we are good to go now. And then we'll try to make up for the time that we have spent. Some people are going to like that, some people are not going to like that. But anyways, let me share my screen. As Sarah has said initially, today we are going to go into the most interesting part of building. So enough of all the back end stuff, what happens in the smart contract and all those logic and all that. So let's start seeing visually appealing stuff and also start seeing the real thing working, which is what we want at the end of the day. All right, so let me just try to share my screen and we are good to go. Now, how do I share my screen on Zoom?
You're supposed to see share. There's an
Okay, okay. Yeah, yes, 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 yes. Desktop one, desktop two, yes. Okay, so I haven't set up this before to share my screen. So they're asking me to quit and then rejoin before I can be able to share. So because I just enabled the permission now on my laptop.
all right, all right.
So let me just do that and I'll be back shortly. Or would they ask me for the passcode again? Or
Let's see. You can just rejoin this thing.
okay. All right, so we're good. I think we're good now. All right, so can you guys see my screen? Hello?
Yes, your screen is visible.
All right. Okay, so like I said initially, welcome to the 7th session, where we are going to be discussing front-end integration with Starknet. And then today's session is going to be mostly theory. So we are just going to be looking at the normal stuff before we do the practical stuff in the next session. So in this session, we are going to see how we are going to connect smart contracts to a front end, understand the basic terminologies, the basic APIs, the basic tools you can be able to use to interact with the Starknet front end, with the Starknet contract from your front end. All right, so my name is Manouh Luka, popularly known as Manouh.dev. I'm a full stack blockchain developer, and I mostly build in the Starknet ecosystem. In today's agenda, we are going to be discussing from starknet.js and also starknetKit. So we are going to be introducing ourselves to two very important tools, starknet.js and starknetKit, which should be your first armor as a front-end developer on Starknet. And also, we are going to be working with provider, signer, and accounts, which are also APIs that you can be able to use within these tools. And then lastly, for smart contract interaction, we are going to understand what an ABI is and also try to interact with a contract, if that can be possible. So if you are a builder or are already a regular builder in the space, I'm talking about building in normal ecosystem, doesn't have to be Starknet. You must have been familiar with a lot of things that I've already mentioned already from today's agenda. So probably Starknet.js and StarknetKit might be new to you, but I'm sure provider, signer, accounts, ABI, that kind of ring a bell in your head if you have been building in the space and I've tried to build, even though it's a very minimalistic gap. All right. So like I said, I'm going to be introducing us to Starknet.js and also StarknetKit. But before I do that, I just want us to let us know that this is just one of many other libraries that you can use to integrate within the Starknet ecosystem. So some of the libraries you can work with is Starknet RS. For those of you that are Rust developers and you want to build your front end with Rust, you can use this library for that. And also for Python devs, you can use the starknet.py also. But for the course of this session, we are going to be working with Starknet.js simply because generally almost everyone is a JavaScript developer. JavaScript is a very much common language among like everyone. So that's why we're going to be working with starknet.js. But just so you know, if you want to integrate in other with other libraries or with other programming languages, you can also work with these libraries. Yeah. So also, we also have Starknet React. So Starknet React is like is an easier version of Starknet.js. Though behind the scenes, it's still Starknet.js that is being run also. It's using Starknet.js methods. So Starknet React is a collection of hooks, collection of methods that are much more easier for us to query and read from the blockchain as React developers. So if you're a React developer, trust me, you are going to like this one a lot. But if you are a fan of something very minimalistic, you are going to love starknetKit, which is also another library. But just know that Starknet React and starknetKit are simpler versions of starknet.js. So as the name implies, Starknet React, you as a Python dev or as a Rust dev, you cannot be able to use that. Likewise, starknetKit. So, but starknetKit is a very minimalistic version. It cuts down, it's like a kit. Just look at it like a toolbox, like your kit, like they mentioned, packed and loaded with a bunch of methods and hooks also that you can be able to use as a front-end developer while trying to connect, read, and also write to the Starknet blockchain. So you are going to choose which is going to be of preference for you while you build. But for now, I'm going to give us a general walkthrough of how all of this works, but through the view of starknet.js. All right, so let's have an overview. What is starknet.js and then what is starknetKit? So starknet.js is a library that helps to connect your website or decentralized applications to the blockchain-based Starknet network using JavaScript or TypeScript language. So that's what Starknet.js is. As it is written here, I got it exactly from the official documentation of Starknet.js. So you can also check that out, and this is exactly how it was defined. So as it implies, it's a library that can help us to connect, help our dApps, help our websites to connect with the Starknet network, connect with the aim of reading and also writing to the blockchain. So that's what Starknet.js is for. So the next is the starknetKit. So the starknetKit is a software development design kit to facilitate the connection with decentralized application on Starknet. So these two things are saying the same thing, but they are just two different libraries. One is an abstract from another one. Simply put, Starknet.js is like the godfather or the grandfather of all. It contains like all the robust methods, all the robust hooks you might need. But starknetKit is just a simpler version that was built by the Agent team to make the development very, very rapid. So instead of you having to set up like a lot of things before you can be able to interact with the network and also read and write from it, they just abstracted all those things using starknetKit to be much more easier. But in the end goal, all of them are doing the same thing. If you're a developer that, let's say you prioritize robustness, that means you have like much larger stuff you want to do, or you have plenty things you want to experiment with, I will advise you make use of starknet.js because it implements a lot of stuffs, right? But if you want to spin up real fast, and then you prioritize working really quick and having access to all the methods that you need already, I would say you work with starknetKit. That's not saying that starknetKit is shallow. I'm just trying to say if you prioritize like more bigger stuffs. But starknetKit is going to give you everything that you need as a developer within the space, building front ends. So it can allow you connect to several wallets and also other providers. So the basic things you can connect with starknetKit is you can connect with the Agent X, which is the Agent extension. You can also connect with the Agent Mobile. You can also connect with the Bravos wallets. And then finally, you can connect with the web wallet, which is also built by Agent. So this is a wallet that you connect with your email, and then you can be able to interact with the blockchain using your email-based wallets. So these are just the 4 that I can allow you connect with. I think there are still other connectors. For starknet.js, you can still connect with like other wallet providers like Kepler and the rest, even MetaMask too. So why we are here today is just to try to connect to the blockchain, interact with the blockchain. That's what we want to do at the end of the day, using our front end. So how do we do that? First and foremost, we need those kits or those tools that I've talked about, starknet.js and also starknetKit. So once you have them installed or have any of them installed, you want to do these 3 basic steps. First and foremost, you want to connect to a node, because to interact with the blockchain, you have to have access to a node. You all know that the blockchain is a blank box, which is just a connection of several blocks, right, in a chain. And to have access, which are like the data providers for the blockchain, that gives us access to this data, either we want to read or we want to write from the blockchain. We have to do that using a node. So that's the first thing, connecting to a node. And then there are certain APIs within this starknet.js and starknetKit that can help us connect to a node. We are going to be seeing that later on in the class. So the next thing we want to do is to connect to an account. So connecting to an account is going to allow us to interact with the blockchain. So you all know that most of the times they say for you to interact with the blockchain, you need an account, right? Most popularly, you need a wallet. And then what a wallet does, it manages your keys, your private and your public keys. And you all know that with the private keys, you can be able to sign transactions on the blockchain, while with your public key, you can be able to receive funds and all that. So for us to interact with the blockchain after connecting to a node, the next thing we need to do is to connect to an account. So if you are connected to an account, you can then have access to interact with the blockchain. So we are going to see all the necessary APIs that can help us connect to a node, connect to an account, and then interact with the blockchain, which is what we want to do. So this leads us to like the second session for today, which are the APIs. So the 3 APIs we need are the provider, the signer, and the account. These are the 3 most important APIs. And then we can have access to these APIs from either starknet.js or starknetKit. All right, so what's a provider, or who is a provider? So the provider API allows you to interact with the Starknet network without signing transactions or messages. So this is the API that enables the connection with a node. And then connecting to a node with the provider, it allows us to have access to the Starknet network. So mostly being able to read information from the blockchain. That's what the provider helps us with. And then there are different providers which we can use to connect with the blockchain through the provider API. Most popularly, we have the Infura, we have Blast API, we have Alchemy. I'm sure virtually everyone knows that. And then there are also other free providers that we can connect to. You can also choose to connect to your local node as your provider. Let's say you are as a developer now, you are trying to build your application. First and foremost, look at your local node as your local dev network, like your local connection. So you can also connect to it using the provider API, depending on which of the provider you are working with. So that's just what the provider API does. So it allows us to interact with the network without signing transactions. It's just our connector. So the next is the signer. So the signer API allows you to sign transactions and messages, and also allows you to get the public key. That's what this API does. Allows us sign transactions, also allows us sign messages. Messages popularly known as transactions also. So don't be confused. Messages can also be regarded to as transactions. All right. So lastly, accounts. So an account extends the provider. So this is like an elder brother to the provider API. So you remember I said the provider just allows us connect with the blockchain, right? Only for the aim of reading. But then with the account is doing the same thing as the provider, but it has its own extra methods, which can help us to create and verify transactions with a custom signer. Number two, it can help us to declare and deploy a contract. That's what the account can do. And also can help us deploy a new account also. We can use the account API to do that. All right. So with this account API, we can be able to sign transactions and read transactions also. Read from the blockchain and also write to the blockchain with this account API. All right. So we have introduced the major APIs we need and also the SDKs or the tools you need to interact as a developer on Starknet. So there are also other SDKs you can choose to connect with. It mustn't necessarily be the starknet.js or the starknetKit. You can choose to work with the cartridge SDK. So with cartridge, you can also interact with the blockchain, but mostly this is used by Dojo developers. That is people who are building on the Dojo L3, which is a game engine on Starknet. They can have access to read and write with this. And also, you can also use the cartridge connector to also read and write to the Starknet blockchain also, amidst other SDKs. So next, let's check out the Starknet documentation and then see how we can do some of these stuffs that I mentioned with the provider and also with the signer and the account. Then we'll come back to the slides. Okay, I think I don't have my browser here. So can you guys see the documentation on my screen now? Yeah, can you guys hear me? Just give me emoji or just tell me
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, cool. How about the starknet.js documentation? All right, cool. Okay, so let's have the walkthrough from the installation process and simply just how to get started. So to get started with the starknet.js, all you just need to do is just run the installation with npm or yarn or any of those guys that you work with. So npm install starknet, and then you can be able to install that. So next now, we need the provider to be able to connect, right? So the first thing you need to define is the network we want to interact with. So the provider is going to determine which of the network we are connected with, right? So in this case, most of the time you want to connect to Sepolia or you want to connect to mainnet. It's going to depend on which of the provider network you are working with. So this is the API. We just try to get or import RPC provider from starknet after we have installed this. Then we try to connect to the node with the RPC provider. So all you just have to do is call the new keyword and then call RPC provider, which we got from starknet. And then in the object, you pass in the node URL. So in this node URL, this is the URL where you are going to pass in your RPC provider. So take, for example, you are working with a free RPC, you can choose to pass it. There are free RPCs for like from Nethermind, from Juno, and the rest of them. Or you can choose to pass in your own key that you got either from Infura or Alchemy or Blast API, any of those providers. You can use your own personal one here. So in this case, you see they pass constant.networkname.snsepolia. So this is a free provider which they got from Constant. So Constant is also gotten from Starknet. It also gives you access to any of the providers. So you just pass in your node URL here and you are good to go. With this, you have set up your provider and then you have successfully connected to the blockchain, which is the first most important thing. Next, you can choose to connect to your own node. So connecting to your node is still you doing the same thing. But then this time around, you are passing the URL to your local node. So as you can see, this is the URL to a local connection. You can see 127.0.0.1. You can just pass that in here. And then this is going to be you connecting to your local node or your local blockchain connection. All right. So that's it for the node. And then next is for us to try to connect to an existing account. So to connect to an existing account with starknet.js, you need like two things, the address and also the private key. So first you can install, after installing starknet, you get the account API from starknet.js, and then you can choose to connect. So to connect, this is a simple code to do that. We call the new keyword and also call the account API and then pass in 3 parameters to this method. So first we pass in the provider, which is the node we have connected to. In this case, this is a local node, but depending on which one you connected to, you pass in your provider as the first parameter. Then next, you pass in the address of the account. And then lastly, you pass in the private key. So this is just a long connection with starknet.js. So with starknetKit, this is much more easier. Or after you get access to either the connect and the disconnect method. So with the connect method, once a user has successfully clicked on connect and then select any of the wallets he wants to connect with, all this is going to be set up for you on the back end. So you don't have to do this guy by yourself. So this is just for people that want to use, maybe you want to use you want to use starknet.js on the back end. So you can also work with this on the back end, not necessarily on the front end. Or if you want to connect to an existing account, you can choose to pass this yourself. But just know that if you connect using the connection method, all of this is going to be done for you. So your wallet is going to let starknet.js have access to your public and private key, and then the connection is going to be done with the account, and then you can be able to interact with the blockchain network. But just know that if you want to do this, you can, to connect to an existing account, you can pass the provider an account address and also the private key. And with this, you can be able to sign transactions. All right. So this is just a minimalistic way to set this up. So next, this is for starknet.js. We can choose to check out starknetKit and see how this is much more simpler to implement. So first time when I started building on starknet ecosystem, starknetKit didn't exist then. And then I was using starknet.js, and then it took a lot of while to do the connections and all that. Though it's not that very robust, but just know compared to starknetKit, it's much more easier. But the first day I had contact to starknetKit, to be honest, I noticed a lot of things a lot of heavy lifting has been done for me. So let's see how we can use this. So all you just need to do, if you are working with NPM or Yarn or PNPM, you can just do the necessary installation. NPM install starknetKit, and then you are good to go. So after you do this, the next step is you have to create a starknet provider.js component. So this is where you are going to do all your setup, and then you pass it to the app.jsx to have access to your app. So let me just zoom this in so you guys can see properly. So in the starknet.js file, next we are going to import injected connector and also the web wallet connector. So the injected connectors are the connectors that can help us connect with, injected connectors can be either our agent extension or our agent mobile or the Bravos wallets connector or the web wallet connector. So the web wallet connector is the wallet I told you guys about that was built by agents that you can use your email to interact with. So in the provider setup, next you try to set up the connectors. So you run new injected connectors, and then you pass in the necessary options. So in these options, this is where you pass in the different connectors you have. So take, for example, in your app, you want users to connect to only agents. You can choose to pass in only the agent option, and it's going to work with only the agent X. So when the user clicks that or clicks the connect method, he is going to have access to only the agents. Likewise, for Bravos, you can do the same. But if you want users to have access to any of these, you can just pass it in from the injected connectors. Yeah, I can see a hand up. You can just unmute your mic and ask your question.
And I want to know if you can add a different injected connector apart from what is compatible with like the agent and Bravos, which is for starknet. Can you add something external like MetaMask?
Okay, that's you adding other wallets, right? So currently for now, it only supports Agent, Bravos, maybe Kepler, and MetaMask. So for other wallets, I'm not sure that you can actually have access to that. So just the ones that I mentioned.
Yes, but then I think initially when we started the training, they were saying that Cairo starknet allows for abstraction. So that's our.
Yeah. So with the abstraction, with the account abstraction, I'm sure with the abstraction, they're talking about account abstraction. They're just trying to say we have on Starknet, all wallets are smart accounts, and then all of the wallets are smart wallets. So with this, you have access to wallets like the web wallets example I talked about, the wallet you can connect with your email. So it's also an example of account abstraction that was made possible with Starknet. And also other stuffs. So when they talk about abstraction, they didn't mean you can abstract or connect with any other blockchain or any other wallets aside the ones I mentioned. Hope that's clear. All right, cool. All right. So after setting up your necessary connectors, and then we add in what we want the users to get connected with, then we move further within the starknet provider file and then run the necessary configuration. So this is what's going to get returned in the starknet provider.jsx. So we're going to see a whole file to see how this is run from A to Z, but this is just like chunks of how everything looks like in the file. So we can get the starknet config components from the starknetKit provider. We just get that from starknetKit, starknet config, and then we set up the necessary configuration. So in the configuration, first we input the chains. So the chains can be mainnet or Sepolia, any of them, or if it's your devnet, you can select, but we work with mainnets. It's either mainnet or testnet or devnet, right? Then next, your provider, which is the guy I talked about that allows us access to the starknet blockchain, right? So the provider is a node which we can have access to. So we are going to pass that in here. So in this case, they just pass in a public provider. But should in case you set up your own normal provider, you can pass that in here and then you are good to go. Then lastly, the connectors. So the connectors is the list of all the connectors that we set up here. So in this case now, we said a user can connect to either Agent X or Bravos or Web Wallet. And then we pass that in here as our connectors. And then when a user tries to connect, he's going to have access to any of those connectors. And then lastly, the Explorer. So the Explorer can be either Voyager or StackScan, which are the two Explorer on Starknet, popularly that I know, because there can be others that you don't know of, right? So this is just the configuration done on the Starknet provider. So after this, you will need to wrap your entire application within this starknet configuration. So after you have done this config, your entire app needs to be wrapped around this so that your entire app can have access to all of this. And then once you have been connected within your application, you can be able to interact with the blockchain from any part of your app through having access to this starknet config. So in this case, this is we wrapping our whole starknet provider with the home file or the home page. But I will advise as a React developer, just do that within your app.jsx. So just wrap that around the app.jsx so you know that the whole app is having access to this. All right. So you can now use the starknetKit connectors using starknet React hooks. Know that starknetKit connect function brings more efficiency and config flexibility. So, like I told you guys, there's a more simpler version of starknet.js, which is not just starknetKit, but also starknet React, which give us access to a lot of methods for us to work with. So you can choose to install starknet React, and then you have access to all of this. Yeah, Cecilia or Celia.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually Priscilla. Priscilla.
Priscilla.
So
I can see
yeah.
Celia. Okay.
So I just took half of the name off. So the use client at the top right. I realized that normally in JavaScript there's that use client. And is it meant for security purpose? Can you explain what it's doing?
Okay, this use client actually is for, I'm sure it's for Next.js or so. Yeah, so mostly use around Next.js. And to be honest, the purpose I'm not sure is for security, and I don't know what that's used for most, because I mostly use React, not Next. So you can also do well to check that out and then know what it's for. Hope that's cool. Perfect. All right. So this page shows a complete A to Z, or a complete rundown of what we need to like set our app. So all the explanation I've been doing, this is the whole page that explains like everything. So if you install maybe starknetKit and then copy and paste this and starknet React, we should be sure to have all of this set up. So we'll try to do that probably at the end of the class. But for now, we have already seen the chunks of how all of this work. So let's move ahead to the next session, which is we trying to interact with a blockchain, or sorry, interact with a smart contract on the starknet blockchain. So sorry, guys. All right, so back to the slides now. So remember I told you guys the three most important things we are going to be doing is first to interact with a smart contract from the front end. The three things we need to do first is to connect to a node, then we connect to an account, and then lastly, we can be able to interact with that. So we have done a rundown of how to connect to a node with the provider, like I explained. And also, we checked out how to connect to an account, right? So last thing we're going to be doing now is trying to interact. So to interact with a smart contract, what we need now is we need two major things to set this up. First and foremost, we need the contract address of that particular smart contract, and then we need the ABI. So the ABI stands for Application Binary Interface, which contains a blueprint of all of the methods, events, and other stuffs that we can, and functions that are contained in our smart contracts that we can use to interact with from the front end. So I'm sure virtually everyone here has already written a smart contract on Starknet, no matter how minimalistic it is, even though it's a counter contract. I'm sure everyone has done that, and everyone has tried to deploy a smart contract, right? So let's see the hands of anyone who has done that. Because if you haven't deployed a smart contract, we cannot be able to, you can easily know where the ABI and easily have a contract address to interact with. Well, if you haven't, it's still cool. But I will advise you do that. Just try to deploy a smart contract on starknet immediately after this class so that you can be able to interact with the front end, right? So the two most important things we need, like I said, is the contract address, which for now you must have already done that, and also the ABI. So what is an ABI? So an ABI, which is application binary interface, is a blueprint that defines how to interact with a smart contract. So it defines the contract functions, parameters they take, and how to format data for calls. That's what we need. That's what an ABI is. Contains all these stuffs. So look at this like our interface to interact with our smart contract. So without the ABI, our front end is not going to know the necessary blueprint it needs to interact with the blockchain. So we can also see an example of an ABI. Click. Does it take me there? No, but I'm going to show you guys an example of an ABI before the end of the class. So let's just try to check out one. Let me look for one and then show you guys what an ABI looks like. Hold on, let me just grab the contract address and we are good to go. All right, back here, let's go to voyager.online and have a look at our ABI. Example of an ABI. So to see your ABI, after searching your contract address, all you just have to do is go to code, and then you can have access to your contract ABI here. So this is what an ABI looks like. As you can see, it's just a JSON file that contains the blueprints of all of the functions, parameters they take, and events within my smart contracts. So even structs and all that. So for those of you who have been building or writing smart contracts from other ecosystems, I'm sure ABI is nothing new to you guys, and everyone is much more familiar with that. So how do we interact with a smart contract now with starknet.js or with starknetKit? How do we do that? So let's check out starknet.js first. So first and foremost, we need to connect with a deployed contract. And like I said, to connect with a deployed contract before interaction, you need two pieces of data, which is the address of the contract and then the ABI file of the contract. This can either be the compressed version or any one of those. So after you're getting your ABI installed, getting your ABI in, so mostly here, they are using the compressed or the compiled version. That's why they are working with this, and they are working with FS to read directly from the ABI file and convert to an ASCII. But then there's an easier version. You don't have to go through this long process. All you just have to do is, as soon as you go to Voyager and get your ABI, just create a file, name it maybe ABI.json or any name you want to give it at all. But it should end with .json. Just paste the file here, there, and then we'll try to import it into where we want to work with. But then this explanation is for the compiled or the compressed version. So next, after you have gotten your ABI, all you need to do now is to interact with the contracts. So to interact with the contracts, all we need to do is also get the contract API from Starknet. So with the contract API, we pass in three parameters, the two necessary parameters, and then we can be able to interact. So this is it. So you pass a new keyword, and then you state contract, which is the API, and then you pass in the ABI first. So in this case, your ABI is saved as test ABI. But then if you import the file, any name you saved it with, that's what you pass in here. Either ABI, test ABI, game ABI, counter ABI, it could be anything. Then next, you pass in the address of that particular smart contract. So if you pass in your address in here, then lastly, you are going to pass in to aside the provider, you can also pass in your account in here. So your account can also serve as a provider, simply because, like I explained in the first time, the account is an extension of the provider. So it's like a much more, it implements all the methods of the provider and even more. So you can pass in either the provider in here or the account. So after you have done this, you are going to get the contract. So in this case, this is it. The contract is being saved as a variable, my test contract. So my test contract now, you are going to have access to all of the methods, all of the function within my test contract. So that's why you see they call the get balance function in here from my test contract to get the balance. So with this, they are reading from the blockchain, and also they can write with the blockchain. So this is for reading. So next, let's see how we can write. So to write, all we need to do is we need an account. So we don't have to work in all these long stuffs. You need an account. So what's done here, first and foremost, they needed to connect. And after they connected, they were able to interact with that particular smart contract. So as you can see, the account instantiation was done here using the provider, the account address, and also the private key to be able to interact with it. So then with starknet.js, they connect, and then they can be able to call, or they can be able to increase balance here, which is a write call. All right. So next up, this is for starknet.js. As you can see, this is like a long implementation. You see all the long thing that has been done here just to read and to write. But to do a simpler version, we always work with starknetKit, right? Which can help us do the necessary stuff. So with starknetKit, after you have successfully connect, you have used this connect method and you have successfully connect, and then you have access to accounts. All you just need to do is use the available methods, which is given to us by the necessary hooks from StarkNet React to be able to interact with our smart contracts. So let's check out the StarkNet React documentation for some of these methods, and we are good to go. All right, so these are all the different methods you have access to, and you can go through the installation guide to proceed with this. But we have done all the necessary implementation down to this place where I explained the final starknet config. So after you have done this, and then you have passing your app.js so that your whole app can have access to this. With this, you are going to have access to all these methods. So the first method is the use account method, which with use account, we can get our address, get the status, and also get the account itself to be able to interact. You can also use the use connect for connection and disconnection. So to read, here's how to read. So this is the hook used in reading. You use the use read contract to be able to read from a particular smart contract using the StarkNet React hooks. So this hook accepts it accepts the ABI, which is the ABI of the particular contract you want to read from. And then next, it accepts the name of the method you want to read. If it's a read method, is it get balance, any of those methods, you can pass it in here. Then lastly, it accepts the address of the smart contract, which is the contract address, right? And then the arguments. So should in case the method you want to read from needs arguments, take for example, if you want to read the balance of a particular account, you are going to need the address of that account before you can be able to read from it. So you can work with these arguments. So also we have the use contracts. So this one is to help us set up a contract. So if you want to set up your contract, all you just do is use the use contract method in here, passing your ABI, which you have imported, and then passing the address of the contract. And then you are going to have access to that particular contract and its methods with the aid of StarkNet React. You can also read the balance of a particular user with this method or this hook. And the rest of them, right? You can also use the use call if you want to call or write to the smart contract. So you can use the use call method to be able to write. All right. So I think with this, we have spoken about most of the necessary things we need to read and also write to the StarkNet blockchain. We have talked about all the necessary libraries, the necessary methods, the necessary hooks that we need to be able to interact. So next up, let's just try to do something very, very minimalistic. So just try to spin up a small React project, install these two things, and then see how they look like. So this is not a technical session. I just want to give us like an overview of how this looks like. So we can see the inner workings to show you that this can easily be set up. Then you guys can try to do this by yourself with what we will do today. Then in the next class, we are going to build something real. So we are going to build a dApp with building on the existing things that we talked about today. But just know what we are going to do now is not going to go deep. It's just going to be something very minimal. So we see how the inner workings of all these things go. All right. So let me get my terminal and so let me just try to spin up like new React project and then do some installation. Let me use npm. So I'll just call the project simple setup. Let me spin it up with JavaScript. All right, so sorry guys. Oh, what's happening? All right, guys, I'm coming. Let me just allow this permission and for my device, and I'm good. So let's use Yarn. What do we need? All right, so I've got this simple React app spinned up with Vite, and let me run the necessary installation. Okay, what's wrong? This seems to be a bit slow. Just be patient, guys. And so while this is trying to run, you can do well to write your questions in the chats if you have any, or just start coming up with your questions, because after this, we are going to be ending this session before we do the technical stuff in the next class. Yeah, so sorry, guys. You lost me for a sec. Hope we're all good now. All right, so we're almost there. All right. So let's work with this file that was given to us initially here. So let's get started. And all right. So I'm working with Yarn. Let me add Yarn add starknetKit. And also add starknet React. All right, so most of the hard job have been done for us here already. I think all we just have to do here is just to copy and paste this guy in there and just see how it works. Well, we haven't done the config. So let's create this guy, starknet provider. So we can just do that here. Let me just do it. This is very minimalistic version. So starknet provider. Yeah, lastly, let's take the connectors. Yep. All right, so with this, we have already set up the provider. With these simple steps, the provider is already set up and we are good to go. So I'm not sure. Yep. So next is just to try to use it within our app. So let me start this app and all right. This is what our app looks like. So let's clear this guy. And then in the main file, we are going to bring the starknet provider and then wrap it around the app. Okay. Oh. All right. I think. Sorry, let me find my way back to the docs. All right, so let's just try to copy and paste this guy. Okay, I see. The project being spinned up is a TypeScript project. Well, I spinned up a JavaScript. So copying and paste their stuff is going to give me issues because some stuffs were set up with TypeScript. So what will happen is, let me just undo this one and then spin up a TypeScript project again. So, but before then, we can take questions. You have questions? While I try to set that up. We still have little time for the class, so there's enough time for. All right, let's go over it again. Questions, please. Okay, so we have another setup. Then lastly, let's run it. All right, so back here, we create the provider file where we are going to put all our stuffs. All right, so let me just do that. Then back to the docs to bring the previous stuffs we've written. Oh, I will install starknet. So let me just install the last two dependencies. And then this guy. Okay. So we copy and paste in the connectors. And then the return statements. So let's bring all these guys in. Starknet config, and then the different chains. All right, let's add in the chains. So to get the chains, we get them from starknet react/chains. And then for the provider, sorry, for the explorer, we are also going to get it from starknet react core. Yes. So let me just get that. So let's try to import. Okay, yeah. Yep. So okay, let me try to format this. So let's set up the interface for children, and then that error should be out. Let the starknet provider props. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And then we bring it in here. Yep. So we are good to go. We have set up the provider. Next up, let's set up let's just do everything in the app.jsx, and we are good to go. All right, so let's copy and paste the previous stuff in here, then try to fix any bug that we have. So I will use this as the same. I think I will change anything. But what's the name of the file here? Wallet connector.tsx. Yeah, but let me just do it like that. So copy. Where's my app? So let me rename this back. So app. Are we experiencing this? All right, back to the docs. Oh, okay, let's just use connectors. Yeah. Yes, sorry guys, can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm coming. Let me share that. How about now?
Yes.
All right. So let's just try to fix this. I think this might be an issue from the version we are working with. So probably this guy is deprecated in the current version, and you can see. But back to starknetKit. And then let's check out the version that we have installed here. Okay, I think we have version 2.1. Okay. Right, has no default exports. Okay. Starknet provider does not exist on type this. Get this guy.
It should be starknet provider with capitals.
Okay, yeah. Spotted. That's true. But let's try it out first. Great. Yeah, that's perfect. So because we gave it out here as this spotted children as starknet is the capital. Thank you. So lastly is to fix the starknetKit connector. Let's see. Let's just try to connect first. So what does this one say? Using a type only import. So exported. Oh. Okay. Extends connector. All right, so maybe let's try something different. Use different connectors and see. Yeah. So no need of working with this guy. So let me just check a workaround and then try to work with that.
Sorry, you should probably try import type starknetKit connector.
Yeah, I've already imported it. This is it.
No, I mean
Type.
import type. If you can check the chat, I dropped a message on the chat.
Okay. So we should just write type in front of it.
Yes, you can try that.
Yep. And let's see. All right. Perfect. So you are the man of the match. In case you watch football, you know what that means. Okay, so with this, our setup should be like already done. So let's just try it out now and see. Could not resolve starknets. Oh, wait. Okay. I think it is since starknet.js. Let's see something. These two guys might contain the same thing. So let's try out something now. Let's uninstall one. But before then, let's see the one what we use for setup here. We use the starknetKit for anything. Connectors. Okay, just this connector here. Web wallet connector. This is not even contained in our file. So this is like a problem from them. But let me try to install the starknet and see. Yeah. So I think that was it. So within their SDK, they made use of starknet somewhere, and then it wasn't finding the importation. So I just tried to install it so that it can work with what we have. So, but then this is it. And then why we ran into most of these problems was because this documentation is an old documentation. Yeah, so they are much more up-to-date docs on how to set all of these things up easily. So with this, we have already set up the wallet connection and also disconnection. So I think we can just try that. And then you see, based on the X, Bravos, or our email. Or I can choose to go back and then change some of these connectors. So if I take out like the web wallet injector now, and then try to connect again, you can see I'm left with just Agent X and Bravos. Likewise, this, if I try to mute it. So depending on what you want your app to make use of, is going to depend on the injected connector you are going to add. So it's only one, that's why it's not asking me for any option. It's just popping all the remaining connectors very fast. So this is it. With this easy setup with your starknet provider and also the basic hooks, you can be able to connect to an account, read, and also interact with the smart contracts. But then for the course of this class, we're not going to try to read or write. We just want to try out the SDK, which is what we have done. So from next class, we are going to try to build a book, I think a bookstore system on Starknet. So we'll write the smart contract, or the smart contract, I'll write it beforehand, and then we'll try to integrate it end to end with all the necessary methods that we need for interaction. So with this, I think it's time, but then for eating in a little part of the class, I'm going to use this time to take questions. So you guys have like a few times to ask me questions. Back to the call. Okay. So any questions? All right, Alfred. So that means there's no questions from today. So you guys are expected to like do a lot of practice, check out all these stuffs, check out the documentations yourself, so that when we are coding the next class, we are all going to be doing it together. And then I expect to see a lot of questions from them, because you guys must have gone through the docs and all that. So thank you very much for your time. With this, we have come to the end of today's session. So
Yeah.
I'll be handing the mic back to Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Manouh, for the class, and thank you for the breakdown as well. So, like you said, the next class will be on Thursday for Frontend. The next class will be on Thursday, so you guys should do well to watch the recordings, go through the docs, so you will have a lot of questions for him. And also, we'll be having the extra session for the bootcamp tomorrow. So, be available. Make sure you're available. You can come, ask any questions that you have. All the tutors from week 1 to week 7 will be available on the call. And if maybe you have any complaints, any blocker, your idea, you're thinking about the idea to build for your project, and you want input, you want advice, please come with your questions. Tomorrow is for us to sort that, because after tomorrow, that's we're going to be having the next session on Thursday, which is the front end. And after the front end, that's the end of the training sessions, like the end. So the next 2 weeks after Thursday, you'll be for the project proper. Yes. So about the assignments, what about the assignment? What don't you understand about the assignment? You're meant to write a token sale. You are meant to write tests for the token sale smart contract. The token sale smart contract was written, I think week 5. Yes, week 5. And then last week was the testing week. So the assignment is for you to write tests, write unit test and integration test for the token sale contract. Do you understand now? If I think Geeky Grips, were you in class last week, and have you watched the recording for last week? You should understand what unit test and integration test is by now. I want to get your response, please, before we call it a day. Any other question from anybody? Any other question? The extra session will be the same time, that 5 p.m. UTC to 7 p.m. UTC. The same time we have the sessions, 2 hours tomorrow. So please come prepared, come with your questions, your concerns, everything. And then the assignment for last week, it was supposed to, the submission form is supposed to close today, but we'll be extending it till Thursday. Yeah, you're welcome. We'll be extending it to Thursday for you to have a lot of time to do it and submit. After Thursday, there's no more extension. Please, Thursday. Gigi Crypt, I'm expecting a response from you. Do you understand what the assignment is about now, or you're still confused? Yeah. The test is different from the ones we were doing. Now, I don't understand. I don't understand this. Were you in class last week? In class last week, I think it was unit tests that coding class did. I think it was unit test. I can't remember. Or did it do the 2? I think it was Emmanuel it was similar to the last contract. Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you, Ebuka. It did the 2. So what you're supposed to do, he didn't write test. So he's taxing you to write test for it. Yes, he has written the contract. Now you're supposed to write the test for that contract. That's as simple as it is, please. You're supposed to write the test for the contract. If you follow through with the class last week, or you watched, or you have not even followed through, you can go back to watch the recording, please, so you can get clarity on how to write unit test and integration test. So you're just supposed to write tests for the token sales smart contract, unit and integration. So that's it. All right. Are there any questions from any other person? So what is still confusing you? I think what you're going to do is just ask your question on Telegram and tag coding class. But I've done the best explanation I could. Yes, so but you can just tag him, since he was your tutor. So in the absence of no questions, so thank you guys for joining today's class. See you tomorrow, same time, that's 5 p.m. UTC. Watch it like someone, okay, yes, exactly. Thank you. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining the class and see you tomorrow, same time. Yeah, bye. Bye guys. Bye everyone.